Welcome everyone to the fifth session of this semester's C-City event titled Beyond Metropolis. The intention of the series is basically to figure out what's happening, what kind of developments are taking place in conditions that are beyond the metropolitan, let's say, situations. In that spirit, we have had four presentations so far, and this is the fifth presentation in this series, and it's a pleasure to have Orijit Sen today. I'll very briefly introduce Orijit Sen before he starts his presentation. Orijit Sen works as a visual documentarian of places, a bit like a map maker, charting many dimensions beyond only the geographical. As a visual artist, he explores the tangible as well as intangible relations that go towards the construction of places. Always curious about what makes a place as opposed to a no place, Sen explores how histories, social relations, and cultural and environmental factors come together to bestow a rich uniqueness to human settlements. This discussion will open up questions through his art projects in Punjab, Mapusa Market in Goa, and Hyderabad's Old City area. With this brief introduction, I'll invite Orijit Sen to start his presentation. Thank you so much.
Hello, hi. Thank you everybody for inviting me and for attending my talk. Special thanks to Anuj, Shreyank, and the others who have worked to make this possible. So without further ado, I would like to start with a project of mine, which is a little bit about this idea of exploring placeness, and it's a very large-scale mural, which is a permanent installation at the Virasat-e-Khalsa Museum in Punjab. I was asked to design this mural as part of the team of the design team of the Virasat-e-Khalsa Museum, and I responded by looking to see the space itself is a very unique and interesting space within which this mural is installed. It's like a very tall, like 20 meters tall, and 75 meters long, and it's sort of shaped like an ellipse, the building in plan, and the mural sort of wraps around the inner wall of this 20-meter high ellipse, and viewers walk in the center of this space on a ramp. So they are surrounded like a panoramic image of the space, and they are walking along the ramp in the center, viewing it as they walk along and up the ramp. They enter from a certain level, and the ramp keeps rising, and they exit at a higher, one floor higher level. So this mural had to be designed to work in a very, I would say, dramatic and exceedingly unusual kind of a space. My concerns, of course, as I developed it, was the idea of scale and how to scale something like this to work for audiences as they traverse this mural. Unlike large-scale murals elsewhere, this mural, because it's situated in the space like this, that it doesn't have, you can, a visitor or nobody can ever see this full mural at one go. You never have that kind of a viewing distance. You have to walk along and up the ramp in order to see different parts of the mural unfold as you walk along. And so there is a kind of very clear element of temporality, like of time, within the act of viewing this. I come with a background from graphic art, and also I worked a lot with the comics medium, and the comics medium is all about the coming together of space and time. where a comic's literally about actually creating narratives with the idea of introducing time into a work uh, uh, that is basically unfolding in space. So the relationship between time and space in comics is a very unique one, and I have worked with that medium literally all my life. And so to me, in some ways, understanding how this mural would be conceived and how it would be executed became a little bit like an exercise in thinking of it like a huge comic book into which you enter. And in this comic book, you as a reader don't turn the pages. The act of turning pages or scanning reading it frame by frame um, translates into walking through it. It's like walking through a comic book, and the pages or the frames succeed each other as you walk through it. And so I actually kind of conceived the mural in some ways in that way. My brief was to create kind of this is a Virasat-e-Khalsa museum, and the museum wanted this to be the introductory sort of a show for people to experience the varied and kind of syncretic history and culture of Punjab um, through time and through contemporary culture. And so I started to kind of I studied a lot of research. I mean, all my work is based a lot on research. I do a lot of visual research, as well as, of course, historical and documentary research. But I was interested to visualize a kind of the how the landscape of Punjab reflects sort of it reflects the many layers of history that it holds, and how can that, while depicting a landscape, how can we bring that sort of layering out in an interesting way for viewers who I mean, the viewers at this museum range from uh, people, agriculturists and farmers from different villages in Punjab on the one hand, to professors, students, professors of history, NRI, Sikhs who come in large numbers. So I always had in mind that I was addressing a very kind of a varied audience, and I needed to create a language of representation which could be sort of interpreted and understood at many different levels. And so yeah, so those are the kind of the thoughts which helped me shape this concept. So I could start with, so anyway, what you're seeing on the screen right now is like the 75-meter long mural which has been unraveled into a flat. You never see it like this. This is for the purpose of my presentation, that is unraveled into a flat plane and seen as a complete image in itself. But let me take you to kind of viewing which is closer to how it's meant to be viewed. Okay, I just want to mention that, let me zoom out a little again, that the entire mural reflects a kind of a schematic map of Punjab. I mean, it's sort of constructed, the base structure of the image is like a map of Punjab, which is not reflective of the geographical maps that we are accustomed to think in terms of, but a kind of map where things that are important. I mean, this is based, I kind of created this structure of Punjab, the schematic map of Punjab based on things that people told me about Punjab. I placed things of relative importance and significance to people. As I said, I did a lot of research, so I spent a lot of time traveling through the towns and villages of Punjab and meeting people and talking about what their culture means to them and what their lives mean to them, and what matters to them in terms of their place. I mean, what is Punjab? What are Punjabis? Punjabis are people who live in Punjab, but what is Punjab? I mean, is it just the so-called cliche of land of five rivers? Obviously not. It being Punjab as any other place which has been habited for a long time and which has many different faiths and cultures and types of people over a history which is very rich, naturally imbues the place with so many layers of meaning. What Punjab means to Punjabis, it's not one thing, it's many different things. And at the same time, there are certain things which sort of come together and everybody agrees upon this sort of whole that is called Punjab. So that is what I wanted to show in my map, not the geographical or physical outlines or boundaries of Punjab, but a map that represents what Punjab really means to people of Punjab. And so I had, if you will see here, there's some key features I built it around. There is, you will notice, I don't know, I should zoom in a little bit, probably. You will see this right from here, this map, there's this road that runs through the heart of the entire image. It runs all the way here. It goes through this very intense city-like space. It is a city, it's the city of Amritsar. And in the city of Amritsar, at the center of it is the Harmandir Sahib, which is the Golden Temple. And then this road sort of carries on and exits from the other side. So this road going all the way through, almost kind of creating two sort of visual halves of the composition, is the GT road, the Grand Trunk road, which is also a very historical road, and also the contemporary lifeline of Punjab. And it crosses several things on the way. This is the Satluj River. This, as I said, is Amritsar city. And here you will see the Bhakra Nangal Dam. And these are all things that people identified as being the key elements of the Punjab in their minds, that defines Punjab for them. And here is the, not far from Amritsar, is the Wagah border. And I'll talk more about these elements later. But basically, this is the primary kind of structure on which I developed the details of the image. So let's see. I'll also, because this mural is meant to be viewed in as you walk along and you see different things, and as I explained, it has a kind of a temporality to it. Each of these areas might be kind of, I mean, I had to rethink the idea of how you compose an image. I mean, normally as an artist, you always look at your entire frame as a singular space, and your however many compositional elements you bring into it, they're all part of a singular compositional surface. However, with the map, since nobody can see the whole thing at one go, it really did not matter what the overall, I had to kind of break past this idea of the overall composition of the image and actually build it like a series of nodes around which I sort of developed the image like radially around these nodes. And then the different radii would kind of meet with each other and create the other segments in between. So here, for example, the Gurdwara here, a village Gurdwara, is a node. So from this village Gurdwara, I kind of developed the layouts or the compositions of other elements in the mural around the Gurdwara. And then over here, this old sarai, which the old Grand Trunk Road has many abandoned sarais next to it, alongside it, as because it used to be an old trade route. And so I kind of visualized sarai as it would have been in the 15th century, right next to the contemporary Grand Trunk Road. So then this is another kind of a node. I mean, this is again something, a hub around which other things then develop. And then I kind of tried, I mean, by placing these hubs in different ways, I then brought the different sort of elements that come out of each of these hubs together to form the composition. And hence there is no one composition. It's like a series of interrelated sort of network of compositions. So anyway, so let's go back to the Gurdwara. I only give the example of the sarai to show you a nearby hub that and how my compositional logic works here. I'll come separately to the story of the sarai maybe. Okay, so here's the Gurdwara. Now you will notice that there are a number of visual devices here which don't belong to the world of image making as we generally know it today in the modern sense. You can see that there is no perspective, there is no orientation. It's not really clear what is horizontal, what is vertical. There is a kind of a randomness to the angularity of things. In some ways, compositionally, you'll see all these figures are sort of radiating off from the center of the Gurdwara where the Granth Sahib is placed. Now, these are all interesting visual storytelling techniques that I sort of evolved from observing and studying the miniature paintings of the Mughal and Pahari and Sikh schools. I thought that it would be interesting to, I had one of the consultants to this museum project was Professor B.N. Goswami, who's one of the world's leading authorities on miniature painting, especially Himachal Pahari miniatures and Mughal miniatures. And while studying those images, initially he was pointing out those images as a way for me to understand history in Punjab and to find visual, because history, as we, not just history, but most of our academic subjects are not taught visually. A historian will know a lot about a particular place, but he or she may not be able to visualize what the world was like at that time. So this idea of a kind of a visualization of history or of whatever it might be, I mean, of ideas, is something that's quite alien to academics. And I think that we are the poorer for it. And so while I was doing the research for this mural, I was very keen on understanding the visual reality of the places and things that we were talking about and depicting. So here, for example, and that's how I started studying the miniature art. And then I realized that miniature painting is a very powerful and very interesting way of storytelling devices, which we in the modern world have sort of forgotten about. And because their primary purpose was to kind of tell stories in many cases. So, and as a comic artist, again, to me, this discovery of this new kind of visual narrative form was very inspiring. And anyway, so then if you'll see here, there are a number of, I mean, this is, not only in the Gurdwara, but scattered all over the mural, but I'm just taking this Gurdwara scene as an example. Like here you will see, typically a langar in a Gurdwara is served with two rows of people facing each other, and the server walks in the middle, ladling out dal, sabji, or roti, whatever it might be. Now, this scene in a modern way, showing it in perspective or whatever, just would not one would not be able to show both sides of people, both facing us or both eating, and we are able to see their faces and bodies and so on. Either one row would have to be facing away, or at most it have to be an overhead shot or some such thing. But I realized from miniature that they had, and the miniature artists had developed these methods of, it's like flipping the image open. It's like it's like taking one side of the image and then flipping it across to see the other side equally clearly. And they've used it in certain situations where they wanted to show, let's say, Emperor Jahangir walking down Chandni Chowk, or riding his elephant down Chandni Chowk, or whatever. Sorry, not Jahangir, Shah Jahan. And I'm just envisioning a random scene. And so the purpose there would be to show the emperor, the elephant, and of course his courtiers and retinue and his guards and whatever, riding down the middle. But the people who commission that painting are the, let's say, the traders and the rich merchants who have their shops and establishments on that road, and they also want to feature in that scene. And this is how the miniature painters evolved this sort of a visual device to be able to show all three of them. The emperor and his retinue, the shopkeepers on one side and the shopkeepers on the other side. Everybody's establishments are visible. And this was kind of a device, like flip the image over, flip it open, literally. Then, of course, the other device is scale. Like, what is important? So here are two sevadars, and they are carrying the supplies for the cooking to happen and the stores to be maintained for the langar. So these sevadars are important in this scene, and because I wanted to, in this image, actually I wanted to sort of dwell more strongly on the idea of seva. And you see, actually here you see the lady sweeping, and you see the sevadars, and you see these masons working on beautifying the border of the Gurdwara. So here I'm kind of, I want to show different types of seva going on. I'm not restricted by the notion of perspective. I'm not restricted by the notion of orientation. I'm not restricted by scale. There's a woman sweeping here is much larger than the two women who are swabbing the floor over here. So scale is determined by other things. It may be what you want to create for compositional balance, but usually in miniature paintings, scale is used to depict importance. I mean, again, if I was to take an example of a typical painting of a court scene, then all the emperor himself would of course be the largest figure in the scene, and then the noblemen and the aristocratic people who are important people in the assembly are shown kind of a middle size, and then the lesser important people are shown small. So here the idea of large, small, medium is not influenced by perspective, not by the idea that, oh, that person is far away from me, therefore he or she is small. This person is close to my point of view, and therefore they are in the foreground and they are larger. So those ideas don't come into play. Scale has a definite meaning. It's not an accident by which a figure becomes large or small in a painting. So I thought that was interesting. I mean, I wanted to play with that as well. I wanted to create imagery that sort of used these kind of elements as specific devices to be read in a certain way. So there's a lot of, let's say, they're not just to be seen as a representation of the real world, but to be read and understood as a narrative and as something that is telling us and giving us information about certain way of life or whatever it might be, certain event. And the other device, there are many others. I mean, another one which I use quite a bit is this way of using sort of cutaways. It's like almost like you want to show a scene of, you're showing a scene on the outside of the Gurdwara, but you also want to show the inside of the Gurdwara. And what the miniature painters would do is simply create slice off. It's like a cross section, but just slice off the intruding portion where you don't want a wall, you want what is inside the wall. And then you do this kind of a cutaway, very beautifully done. I mean, not like a crude cutaway, but thoughtfully kind of composed and placed within the larger image with the, with the motifs and borders that go with the architecture. So you don't feel right away that, oh, this is some kind of it's not like a scientific cutaway illustration. It sort of blends in with the rest of the architecture and so on and so forth, so that it doesn't feel like it's not part of the scene. And yeah, so or for that matter, this perspective play where you actually see everything in a kind of a vertical plane. One thing, the thing that is behind is above, and so they're not being obscured by what is behind. Something is not obscured by what is in front of it. Both are visible. So this is what I found very interesting about miniature painting, that the painters had come up with many devices by which they were able to narrate very complex stories and with many things going on at the same time. But anyway, so I kind of studied that and I worked on it, and little by little, and with Professor Goswami's guidance, I sort of developed. And of course, I wanted to go beyond just what I learned from miniature. So there's a lot of my comic art kind of learnings also here. I sort of blended it into a sort of a contemporary style, and I also didn't want to, in the popular imagination in Punjab now, miniature paintings are no longer something that people look at, and it's seen as or thought of as something that belongs to the past, which is a pity really. But I still wanted to create a kind of style which paid respect and homage to miniature painters, but I also wanted to make it very playful and contemporary. I mean, I wanted to create a style of image that would not remind anybody of the past, but would be very much about the present and full of observed details from the present. So here, for example, okay, here's another of these hubs that I kind of focus points that I work with is, so here, so you'll see on the kind of similar scale, there's a Gurdwara which is actually quite a large public space in a sense, and it has many figures and many things going on, many sets of activities happening within that. But in terms of pictorial space, it's not much larger than the pictorial space of this one small household, the courtyard of a typical Punjabi house in the village, a modern, as in to say, not the traditional mud houses, which by the way are also here. I mean, here's a scene of this is a potter's section of the village of the past. I mean, now these kind of segregations are less defined, and potters anyway don't really. Earlier, the potters had a very important role to play in the community. Today, it's all been replaced by plastic and all that. So potter communities don't really exist as large communities. There are a few singular potters here and there, but this idea of a whole section of villages, the community of potters, has sort of faded away. But I recreated the scene. So what I've done visually also is I kind of juxtapose the past, the present, the real, the story, I mean the folklore. And my idea is to kind of the religion, the crafts practices, I mean, many different aspects of Punjabi life. My idea is to sort of bring them together as in a seamless way. I'm not separating them. I'm not saying this is the past, this is the present. They just flow into each other. And in a way, to me, that is what defines the nature of a culture or a place, is that it contains all of this. And there are no neat little dividing lines which separate the old from the new, or from what is imaginary from what is real. Sometimes the story of Heer Ranja is more real to a Punjabi, let's say, listener. Mm, it speaks volumes maybe it's more real than the everyday reality that they may see around them, or that they live with. So I kind of worked on this image I mean, my approach was to slowly erase those artificial divisions that we sort of typically tend to view things as, and our subjects as academic studies also, history is history, sociology is sociology, or environmental science. I mean, we don't see them as part of the same reality. I mean, and I was trying to kind of erase those boundaries. And so here you see is the everyday life of a Punjabi farmer's family, and the two men are just finishing off their breakfast, sitting on the charpai. This again is now disappearing, but it's still prevalent in some villages where the the kitchen is actually made is a semi-open kitchen, which is often in the courtyard of the house, and made entirely out of very nicely constructed mud, with shelves and niches and alcoves for keeping things, and the fireplace also, and which is often fueled by cow dung. And the family is gathered around, and there are also, in typical farmhouse situation, there are of course animals like chickens and pigeons and hens and buffaloes and so on. And we see little details which remind us that this is, I mean, we should not fall into this idea of the typicalness of things. I mean, that's like oversimplification when you say this is a typical Punjabi courtyard or a typical Punjabi dress or whatever it might be, because people are individuals and they always defy this typicalness of things, and also times keep changing. For example, this young boy is chomping on a mooli, which is something that many of us, I suppose, who know a little bit about Punjab would associate with village life in Punjab. But then he's wearing his fancy new Adidas sneakers. And similarly, like this old gentleman who is reading a newspaper, but he has a bright blue plastic chair on which he's sitting. And so how the past, the present, the traditional, the new, they keep blending and they keep changing. And to me, I was trying to capture that. I was trying to capture that simultaneity of so many things. And just outside the courtyard, the tractor is parked. And one of the workers of the household is milking the cow. And we see that this scene, which is the scene of Lohri. So also, I mean, I used festivals as a kind of a motive to sort of punctuate, or rather mark time as an annual cycle. And so you will see many festival scenes of different times of the year, which are placed within this larger image. And again, using a miniature device, which is like creating a frame within a frame. So I wanted to show many different things and the connections between them. For example, Lohri celebrates the story of, is based, I mean, a hero called Dulla Bhatti, a folk hero, who, as the story goes, was finally put to death by the Emperor Akbar for being defiant about paying taxes and for standing and fighting for the rights of peasants. He was like a peasant leader. His name is Dulla Bhatti, so Dulla is actually a affectionate short form of Abdullah. And so his full name was Abdullah Bhatti. Okay, would you stop recording for a sec? Why? Have you stopped the recording? Hello.
Yeah, yeah,
We
no, it's
are
fine.
live.
Sorry.
No worries, no worries.
Okay, no, just because the dogs are barking and I can't step out to stop them. So I thought I should just take a pause here and let them finish barking. Then, because you're recording the whole thing, right?
Yes, 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 we are.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, we're not live.
We
Are
are.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm so sorry. I thought we're just recording it because
No.
last time because of the live audience we had this problem with my not
No.
getting the internet on the internet. Anyway, so then I'll just carry on, and I'm sorry for if the audience will have to put up with occasional outbursts from my dogs in the background.
Right,
Okay,
right. Yeah.
carry on. So I was talking about the scene of this festival called Lohri. And that festival happens at the time of in January at uh, uh, around 14th January or 13th usually. And that's the time of when the mustard flowers in the fields are ripe and ready for harvest. So I kind of wanted to build in, but Lohri is a festival, since it's based around the idea of a fire. The community gathers and lights a big fire and sings songs about Dullabhatti. So here I visualized the scene with the community gathered around and the fire in the center, singing songs, and the image of Dullabhatti kind of rising out of the flames. And on this side, we see the mustard fields and the flowers in bloom. Now I have to insert, to do this, I have to insert a night scene because I want everybody to be lit by the firelight and so on, and I evoke that mood of glory. Insert a night scene surrounded by a day scene where people are actually working on the mustard blooms and harvesting them and so on and so forth. And that's where, again, this is a miniature device I've seen used very interestingly, where the artist would make a frame within a frame to insert a different time frame or a different scene within kind of which kind of shifts the idea of time within one image. So I've used that device as well quite a bit to go back and forth between time, or in this case between in a way between just times of day, like the nighttime scene and the daytime scene sort of juxtaposed together. And similarly, there are many other sort of details about what we're talking about, the idea of what makes a place, or what makes the culture of a place very distinctive, unique in its own way. I'll keep zooming back in and out so you continue to see the visual relationship between the different parts of the mural. At the same time, what fascinated me is the contemporary life in Punjab and how or this idea of villages are being transformed with the, because people have gotten wealthier or there's money coming in from Canada or whatever. People build these. I mean, earlier they would just have had simple mud houses in their villages. Now people often build very fancy houses. And so I kind of want to record one of the interesting, let's say, results of this this way of modern materials coming in is that I don't know why exactly in Punjab that people have a real liking for fancy water tanks. I mean, they'll build the whole house and then it's like a sculptural element on top of the house. And I've seen so many inventive and interesting water tanks, and I've documented some of those in these drawings. Down here, you will see a football. a fully spherical water tank, carefully made in the shape of a football. And here is, of course, an aeroplane, which actually said Air India. These are real water tanks that I've made drawing of from site and then introduced into the mural. And then there are these, I mean, you, as I was pointing out, I mean, you can see like agricultural work happening here. And now we also see the, on the one hand is agricultural work, and the other hand is the artisanal work. And the different types of little narratives. So as I was saying, I mean, the narrative unravels as you walk along the ramp in the museum. Here you see a carpenter and his assistant, and they are, working on something. You can see that partially constructed something. And then as you walk along, you see the cycle. Then as you come here, you see the carpenter has put his finished object on his cycle, and he's walking by and has paused to sort of talk to a neighbor. And then later you see, as you walk along, you notice the carpenter is there. He's heading towards the Gurdwara. And then you see the carpenter and his assistant taking it's called the Palki Sab, in which the Guru Granth Sahib is kept. You see them taking it into the Gurdwara. So there are many of these characters who you encounter as you walk. You encounter in different situations and places, and so it also becomes something that allows me to show sequences, almost like in a comic book, related to activities or skills or various aspects of life in a Punjabi village. And yeah, so for example, here you see this entire scene of what is called a Veda in a mud house, which is basically the very, nicely lapoed veranda in front of the house. And this scene was described to me by a lady who was maybe in her late 60s. And she described it in such vivid detail over how she, her mothers and aunts and some women from the neighborhood would gather together in the afternoons when they were more free, and they would spin khadar fabric for the whole family to use. So this was quite an sort of evolved and important kind of communal activity, which led to, of course, we know that Gandhi and all made it a very cornerstone of the Indian freedom movement. And but this was an everyday scene. And she described how sometimes the spinning, the charkhas were actually very elaborate and very beautifully crafted with a lot of inlay work and lacquer painted the what do we call that? I mean, the shaft that holds the spinning wheel. And she said, I used to be a little girl and I would go hunt for things around. Like she talked about jamun, how she used to love jamun. And they had a jamun tree near her house, and she would go hunt for jamuns, newly fallen jamuns from under the tree. And she would sit and enjoy her jamuns while her family members were chattering and spinning fabric. So she literally described the whole scene. There used to be this kind of a basket in the corner, and we would have these hand fans to do the rotating. And yeah, we had a dog who would also hang around. So all of this. So in some places, what I've done actually is I've tried to make memory sort of become manifest. People's memories, which are so. As I said, there are many layers of history and ways of history telling, and I've kind of moved between them all without distinguishing. I mean, this is real history, so-called, that is folklore. Here, Dulla Bhatti is a completely a character from folklore, but he holds a very important position in the hearts of the people, and therefore he occupies an important place in my mural. And similarly, this memory is perhaps the memory of the little girl's memory, or the old lady's memory of her being a little girl, is also a form of history telling, which I find fascinating and important. And so I kind of created the whole scene out of that. And, you know, if I start telling you everything that I put in here, it would take, I think, many Zoom sessions. So I just want to explain how the layering of things work. And I'll kind of let you enjoy some of these scenes without too much explanation, because I think I've explained the basis of it. And now, ultimately, the proof of the pudding lies in the eating. Okay, here's a clue as to how I evolved this image. I mean, how this entire big mural I worked with a team of people. Is I've deliberately left out it all went in stages, and I had a team who would, let's say, some of the artists in my team really I got them to specialize in trees, like really draw all the trees in the way that study them and draw them perfectly. So this is a people tree. So there's some artists who would draw the basic drawing, some who would do these flat color fill-ups, and then somebody would do the final rendering of the shade and the light. And of course, all of it finally would come to me, and I would assemble it and add I would change things, I would add my stuff. So that's really how this team of people work, and I work. So I wanted to kind of, with this tree, I've left it like this in order to understand that it's almost like the process, that part of the process of how it was created. So here's a kind of funny scene. Here's a Bharat coming in, creating a traffic jam, of course, with all the musicians, band baja guys, and all joining the Bharat. And then, of course, they have to do their bit of dancing on the road in the middle of the traffic and burst some firecrackers and all of that. And while all this is going on, the groom is riding his white horse, led with a Sarbala, a young boy, riding with him, and led by the father, which is something apparently that used to be really important back in the day, that the father would always lead. If the father was there, he would lead the groom. And again, like building up a kind of temporality here, because you see all this going on. Here you kind of see, let's say, kind of women in the house, all excited, anticipating the arrival of the Bharat. And then inside the courtyard of the house, you see the Anand Carriage, the wedding procession itself, I mean, the wedding ceremony itself taking place. And it's also in sort of enclosed within a frame which has these mehndi patterns. So I forgot to mention that when I created this scene of the lorry, which happens, as I told you, at the time of the mustard fields ripening and harvesting, I made a pattern for the border for this frame, which separates the night scene from the day scene, which is actually a close-up study of mustard flowers and leaves, which becomes a decorative pattern, but actually it contains. So what I was fascinated by is how, with this medium or this way of drawing, we can simultaneously show really long shots of things or panoramic views, and at the same time zoom into very tiny details. And they work very well together. They don't look out of place. You don't need to separate them out and say this is a detail, this is a large view. You can kind of bring them all together. So that's similarly here with the wedding. That's what I'm doing. And here you can see there's been a shift because the Bharat has arrived. Over here, the Bharat is still on the way. And then here the Bharat has arrived. The musicians need to be paid off before the actual ceremony because somehow that's a tradition. It's like, as far as the musicians are concerned, who knows, once the wedding starts, whether they'll ever get paid. So, so they kind of getting paid off for their efforts. They put their instruments down and they're sort of taking a break. And this guy's taking a leak in the corners. Next to the Sony Cozy ad. Here's another frame within a frame, and it tells the story of, it shows the lovers Heer and Ranja, who it's a Sufi story that all faiths in Punjab are united by, is the story of these lovers, Heer and Ranja, which is a very, very epic kind of a tale which is sung. It's like an epic poem. And Ranja in the story is a buffalo herd. So here is a visualization of a village pond, which again is something that many older people, they sort of, they had fond memories of. I mean, nowadays, when I was traveling in Punjab, I didn't see very nice ponds, as in there were spaces where the ponds existed, but they were mostly really just garbage dumps. But the village ponds used to be the place where the buffaloes were taken, mostly by the young people in the afternoons. It was a place where romances would blossom and all kind of things would happen. So people had, everyone who remembered the village pond always had really good memories of it. So here's again a kind of a visualization of a memory rather than reality, which blends. And over here you see a folklore. And while on the other side, you see here, all of this is like a typical everyday life of the village in Punjab. And so, as you see in this sort of composition, history, mythology, folklore, memory, and the present everydayness of life, everyday sort of practices, material culture, all of that sort of comes together seamlessly, flows into each other, in fact. Or even natural history, because here you see these are actually migratory birds that used to come to Punjab when the water bodies were all over. Now there are less. These are pintails. These are yellowbill, and these are Siberian cranes. Siberian cranes virtually don't come anymore, but they used to. There's a kingfisher, which is a resident bird. Here's a tree, the flame of the forest, which is called dhak in Punjabi. Again, which after the Green Revolution has kind of ceased to exist in Punjab. They've all been chopped off. But at one time, it used to be a fairly ever-present forestry in Punjab. When we associate Punjab the landscape of Punjab with these flat agricultural fields and mustard fields, and the image that Bollywood has sort of popularized. However, Punjab was not always like that. I mean, there are many hilly forested areas in Punjab which have mostly been flattened out into vast agricultural fields. But these kind of trees existed when there were more forests in Punjab. So in a way, it's also a telling of history. It's also a reminder to people what was and what has been lost. Here on this little road going alongside, coming out from the highway, there is one form of transport that is very popular, especially if traveling between one village to another. And that's like I've been on it myself. It's kind of scary, especially if you're sitting on the roof. But that's how it goes. All the women get stuffed inside and all the men just cling on every side of the vehicle. These were old three-wheeler tempos, which have been stripped down. So they look a bit like Mad Max kind of vehicles. The other ubiquitous but also disappearing part of highway travel was the dhaba approach. This is what I was earlier referring to, the scene of a sarai in the 15th century. Again, with Professor Goswami, I was able to sort of study a whole bunch of old miniatures which depict some of these scenes of how people in sarais would gather. These sarais were like mini fortresses where people would come, merchants would be carrying, because there are always bandits, dacoits, and others around on the highways, especially at night. So merchants who were carrying precious cargo would arrive at a sarai, and the sarai is a lockable space, as in to say, it's like a fortress with a big entrance gates and kind of ramparts, or rather sort of like ramparts where you can walk, where guards could walk and patrol the entire space. And there was enough living quarters inside. There were most people would end up pitching their tents. There's a large open courtyard. It's built around a central courtyard. Some of them was pretty large and elaborate. Many of them would have a mosque or some other place of worship inside it as well. And so you see all that here. It's a kind of recreation based, again, on research and history telling. Such sarais exist, except just the walls exist, and many of them are in quite crumbling condition. In the villages you'll find in Punjab, especially along the Grand Trunk Road. However, they bear witness to amazing history, and I try to kind of bring to light what these sarais used to be, because I was also concerned on my travels to Punjab to see that a lot of people are defacing them, or they just think of them as ruins instead of sort of caring for them and researching more about them as a very important part of the whole history of Punjab. So I made this scene to kind of show what a vibrant space it used to be. Do tell me if I'm overshooting time.
I mean, we have time till 7:30 technically, but we can save some time for question and answers.
Right.
So you can. I think you can take another 15-20 minutes if you.
Sorry, could you say that a bit louder? I didn't hear that. How many minutes do we have?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. So I said technically we have time till 7:30.
Okay.
So we can have some 30 minutes of question and answer session.
All right. Okay.
So we can take time till 7 if you need to elaborate something.
So you're saying I have about 10 minutes more to?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay, great. So here also you will see how I've been trying to work with this idea of constantly shifting perspectives, seamlessly blending each other. For example, here you see the birds, the egrets flying across the Satluj River from a sort of bird's eye view, so to speak, from above them. But right next to them, the dhabas, as you can see, are almost at eye level, just a little above eye level. And yet they coexist side by side. Again, this is a device that I've kind of got fascinated by because of miniature paintings. How you're not kind of anchored to one viewpoint. You can keep on shifting. You can. It's a bit like being a bird and zooming in and out and up and down, and of course, as a result of this, I was very interested in creating images that. I mean, very often I was interested to understand how something looks from above, because I want to create a lot of these things, at least, are partially visible from, for example, the truck. But typically, if one were to draw a truck, it would be like a eye-level view of the truck, which is like as though you're standing in front of it. But many of my images I've used are kind of, because I want to reveal stuff. I want to show not only the truck, but what's behind the truck is more important. And the people who are sitting on the table and eating, or what's happening in the kitchen of the dhaba, or so on and so forth. And so, so these views are often actually have this raised kind of a perspective. And I think now that drones have become fairly common, and you can actually get views like this without too much trouble. But back then, it was impossible to. I had to really imagine what things look like in my head. It was not easy to get references. We did do a lot of photographic research in Punjab. However, it's only once in a while that you may happen to take a photograph if you're on the first floor of a building or something, and you get that perspective. Otherwise, if you're standing on the street, it's impossible to take a picture of a truck and know what it looks like from above. So you have to imagine it, and not only a truck, but so many other things. And I wish I had drones at that time. Would have made my life easier. But in a way, I feel that this is almost like a drone's eye view before drones actually existed. Or at least before they were commercially available. Drawing Punjab and researching meant that I had to draw a lot of buffaloes. There were buffaloes everywhere, and I really grew very fond of buffaloes. And I realized after a while that buffaloes have individual expressions and faces, and just like humans. You just can't look at A buffalo and B buffalo as just replicas of each other. Each one is different. They have different temperaments. Then when I saw that how much, I kind of became fond of buffaloes, and I want to kind of show that expression. So here in this image, this jeep is crossing the bridge here. It's placed at a point where from the ramp, the viewer would see it almost exactly at eye level. The viewer is at eye level of the scene, but the scene is seen from above. So I used that particular kind of a juxtaposition of the depiction and the viewer to make this buffalo stare back accusingly at the viewer for having been tied up like this on the back of a jeep and being transported around the state. And so this was a little like my lending my voice to protests that buffaloes themselves cannot make. Yeah. Okay. So now we crossed. So as I said, this is the Satluj River. So just to bring you back to all that we looked at, is all of this part of the village, and the Sarai over there, and Satluj River here, the bridge. And then here on these two areas, I want to dwell on the two very important aspects of Punjabi life, which is agriculture and the economic activities in Punjab are, of course, centered around farming. And again, two different types of farming. So the highway cuts through the center. Above it, you see the traditional wheat and millet-based agricultural practice. And the famous, on this we again come back to a festival here, the Baisakhi festival, which was actually, which would take place in, does take place in April. And people would gather, it among other things, it celebrates the wheat harvest. So people gather around in fields where the wheat has been harvested and it's a sort of empty, flat field. And those were the sites of the melas, the Baisakhi melas. And which had when I spoke with older people and we did some research on this, there was enough material on this. We found that there used to be these old Ferris wheels, wooden Ferris wheels, which would be the local entrepreneurs who had these would take them from one Baisakhi Mela to another, set them up. Obviously, they're not anything in terms of scale as the size of what we have now. But they were proper Ferris wheels with very nice, from the drawings I saw in the miniature painting, they had these really nice gondolas where you could sit, and it had all this, so they were, nicely carved and colored. So I researched those Ferris wheels and we created this. Of course, they don't exist anymore. But the Baisakhi Mela, this Ferris wheel itself becomes a kind of a central focus and divides the image into several kind of slices, like pizza slices. And in each of these wedges, I sort of depicted, people listed and told me like a hell of a lot of things that used to happen at these melas, like different kind of performers, charmers, musicians, tricksters, food sellers, bangle sellers, and so on and so forth. So entertainers. So then I kind of made a comprehensive visualization of all these different kinds of performers and entertainers who come for the melas. And they were the heart of the mela. Today, the mela is more like a commercial exercise of just some companies making use of the happy occasion to market their products. So that has totally changed. And so I paid a lot of attention to researching and then recreating these scenes from Baisakhi of the past, what Baisakhi meant. And but along the peripheries of this scene are we will see the harvesters and the combine, which represents the essentially different way of farming that has replaced the old way of farming. All of this camaraderie within the villages were also because people had to help each other harvest their fields. I mean, it was like a economy of exchange. I mean, there was no money. It's not that you paid your neighbor to come and work on your fields, because he came and worked on your fields and you went and worked on his fields. And that is how the the kind of work got done communally. And so obviously it's a communal, and once it's harvested, it's a time of great, obviously, joy. People have all the money, people have their grain baskets are full, And that's how the Mela kind of resonates for everyone. Today, this is what happens. There are large holdings, few wealthier farmers, and even when there is these harvesters are sometimes used as a communal device. It's owned by a let's say a harvester entrepreneur or somebody who invests in the machines of these scale, and then it is hired turn by different people. But there is no coming together of the community. It's just a transaction between paying for a service and having it done. So I just want to kind of juxtapose these two elements, also explain why Baisakhi is not what it used to be. And on the other side of the road is the post-Green Revolution scene of rice planting. Punjab was never a place that grew rice. And after the Green Revolution was introduced and all that, and the Bhatranangal Dam, the dams and the water, all of this is part of the larger kind of Green Revolution plan. Punjabi farmers took to rice farming as well. But with this kind of farming, what also happened is that the farmers became, again, it was no longer a way of communal farming, but of like hired labor. So the history of Bihari and UP laborers from these regions and other places coming into Punjab to work in the fields has changed not only the demographic, but also perhaps some of the cultural relationships, balances, social balances within Punjabi society. So here we see hired labor working, migrant labor working on the fields. So when they gather and they have their lunch times next to an old monument somewhere, and then much more use of machinery and tractors to prepare the fields and do. So it's a different kind of agricultural practice, and it changes obviously the social relations and social way of life also in the process. So I want to contrast these two scenes, one above, one below, just to say, but they both relate to the very important economic activity of agriculture, but they're both very different kinds of agriculture. And what was challenging for me as an artist at this point was I wanted to, the way I drew the Baisakhi scene, I wanted to evoke the hot summer month of April. And the way I did the rice planting scene, I wanted to evoke the dense gray, cool months of September, August, September, July, or when it's raining hard. And the sowing of rice always happens during the thick of rains. And because, of course, the rice needs a lot of water. And so I really had to think through the colors above and below to suggest, without them being two separate images, the idea of summer at one point and the idea of monsoon on the other. So it was the color, the quality of light, the quality of color, and the way colors reflect light that I was kind of concerned with in depicting these scenes. So these are some of the challenges that that I sort of took a lot of. It was quite intense, to say the least. All of this, creating it in this way. Now we come to the city of Amritsar. I'm going to stop with Amritsar. That's just half of the mural, and then there's the other half with as many and more stories here, but we obviously can't go into all of it. So this is the city of Amritsar, and the center of the city is Harmandir Sahib, standing in the Sarovar, and around it we see the bustling city. You will notice that there's not a single human being shown here. That's because in the museum itself, there's a projection that happens on this as I was saying, this is the dead center of the entire mural. This is all one side of the mural, and this is on the other side of the mural. And this is the dead center where you're walking on the ramp and you're doing a U-turn to go up. That's where you see it. It faces you like in front. You face it front ways. And so this part had a projection happening. So you could actually see all the people, all the thousands of characters that are elsewhere. Here you would see on this part, people come alive, as in to say, animated characters projected onto this part of the image. So these are many scenes from Amritsar city. Again, to me, the blend of architecture of the old architecture, kind of colonial style architecture, and the more modern architecture, pretty haphazard concrete architecture, all of this sort of just blending into each other topsy-turvy. And to me, that was fascinating about it. So it was so intense and such a densely varied architecture city that I took a lot of trouble documenting a lot of the, especially the old styles of the balconies and wooden. Some of them were very beautifully carved wooden ones, but I recreated them. Not many of them remain in very good condition, but I recreated again some which are like how they, after making close drawings, I recreated them as though they're new. And then of course I would place them next to how they, many of them actually are now. So you get or place one above the other. So again, the viewer would be made aware of the passage of time and of what is being lost and what remains. To me, this was always the important thing, because I'm not a person who's been born and lived in Punjab all my life. So essentially, I come in as someone from the outside, looking at a certain community, a certain culture, a certain way of life, and in a way, talking about that primarily to the community itself, because a majority of the visitors at the Virasat-e-Khalsa museum are Sikhs and Punjabis themselves. And so I always had to be conscious about a few things. One is I had to get everything absolutely right. I was like a stickler for research. I was like, I'm not going to guess anything. I refuse to allow my artists to guesswork anything. Everything has to be based on actual experience, research, and documentation. So every building, every object, every clothing, there are thousands of these things, but everything is accurate. I mean, to the point where this particular shape of auto rickshaw is what you have in some parts of Amritsar, and they are different from the Delhi auto rickshaws. So I would not stand for an artist just drawing a Delhi style auto rickshaw and standing there. So everything was, details of the old furniture, the old kind of woodwork, all of this has been carefully studied and constituted, and at the same time, sort of juxtaposed with what some abandoned houses, some concreted over houses, how things change, and whether to raise a question whether it's always for the better. And there is this famous tree which actually grows in Amritsar, which grows out of a peepal tree, sorry, a banyan tree, which grows out of a temple, a small shrine in the middle of the street, and just extends, and it actually goes into like what we've shown here. It actually goes into people's houses and windows, and people have allowed that to happen. It's literally like kind of a tree that sort of enters from the public into the private space and holds and creates a private space out of the public also by creating kind of a canopy under which people gather and there is a temple, but there's also a secular space there. There's all kind of different things going on. There's a old Sufi shrine. So these are the beautiful things about syncretic cultures like Punjab and the cities of Punjab, and some of that I wanted to celebrate through my artwork. Anyway, so this is mainly the city scenes around, and I of course now there was one gentleman who complained bitterly how he's trying to keep the neighborhood park really green and have the grass grow nice. He's making efforts, he's putting fertilizers, he's watering, getting it watered, and yet cows come in and eat up all that stuff. So I thought that was quite funny, and that's sort of typical of many cities in India. The kind of clash of aspirations. So I sort of thought a very nice depiction of that. Is another story in a sense, of course, visualized. And just as you've kind of gotten tired of wandering around the gullies of Amritsar and all the from kulche to this to that to different buildings and different things you get and all the food, shops, everything, you kind of suddenly find yourself on a street corner which passes through clouds, and then you're in Toronto. And I heard about Toronto so many times, and Toronto seemed like a parallel city that lived in the minds of the people of Amritsar. So I thought I should depict Toronto for sure. It's also part of Amritsar. And therefore I framed it in clouds, because clouds represent our wishes, our aspirations, our dreams, but it also is literally the material through which you have to fly in order to reach Toronto from Amritsar. So this was a carefully researched scene of Diwali going on in Toronto. People celebrating Diwali on the street. Under, of course, much more organized situation than what happens in Amritsar. But it's a kind of parallel scene, because here I've also shown like parts of this about Amritsar Diwali also. I've kind of worked on scenes which reflect the evening time, and some scenes like this about Diwali. Anyway, so then I think I'll end it there, because as I was saying, we want to keep some time for question answers, and this is, I suppose, but I mean, I'm happy I was able to spend enough time to explain a whole bunch of things. There's a lot more there, but I hope you enjoyed that.
No, thank you so much. It was, I think, the thickness and the richness of the mural is, I think it will take really, like you said, multiple sessions to just maybe speak, of this one mural.
Yeah.
Really, thoroughly
Yeah.
enjoyed the thickness.
Thank you.
And particularly enjoyed the way you've chosen to flatten the kind of landscape.
Yeah.
And flatten hierarchy, structures, what is supposed to be big, what is supposed to be small, and all of those things, inverting those very interestingly.
Yes.
It's very nice, and particularly also because something at sea that we try to insist when we study cities is how do we try to flatten these kind of assumed notions of how one reads the space. And I think in that terms, it was very useful to see your technique and the method that you kind of really use to put together this, I mean, what appears to be like an almost impossible mural. Like 75 meters is like massive. I could only just imagine what it might mean to just span. Like I could even imagine Usain Bolt running 100 meters. It
Yeah.
still takes, close to 10 seconds. And so the
Yes.
amount of
Yes.
time that one needs to spend to really be absorbed in this mural would be tremendous. I think I've not seen it in person, but I could imagine that how this mural would really transform the architecture of that of the Virasat-e-Khalsa museum.
Yeah.
Simply because it forces you to also slow down,
Yes. Yes.
and probably also have fun while you're
Yeah.
slowing
But
down.
the problem is actually that is the first gallery in the
Right.
people enter in this museum
Okay.
through this place,
Right.
and some they found that it's creating a because people like to just enter and then they start loitering as in
Right.
they just hang around looking at things and not
Right.
move very fast,
Right.
and so
Yeah.
the museum finds that a problem because it creates a backup in the
Right.
people who
Right.
come in,
Right.
because they have a lot of visitors.
Right.
So now they have ushers in this space, and sadly they just keep moving people on, say aage badho, aage badho.
Right.
They don't let people hang around too long,
Correct.
looking at everything.
Correct.
So anyway, I mean, for those who wish to see, they should just come again and again, and every time they'll see something different, something new, notice something that they didn't before.
I agree, completely agree. I mean, like couple of things that I really enjoyed before I go to the question and answers was like just building on that idea of the flattening, like how the fictional, non-fictional, real, unreal,
Yeah,
all considered in the sense that that they are deeply effective and historical also. That people,
yes,
like you mentioned, might consider mythology as extremely real. And maybe consider the neighbor's house is extremely unreal, for instance. Like
yes,
it could be, and the whole dimension of migration, migrant labors, the showing of the transformation or change, not so much in the like when I first saw the mural, I was expecting it to be like not showing the transformations very clearly, but I think the transformations are seen in nuances and in detail. Somebody's shoes, the advertisement that comes on a shop, or banyan, cozy banyan thing coming there. I think it kind of really shows, or the airplane water tank and the football water tank. I think in those details, it really shows how the landscape of the state has really, really transformed. And maybe one last thing was this whole idea of the wilderness of the simultaneity. So hundreds and thousands of things that are happening simultaneously, like at the level of, let's say, species and flora and fauna, and then weddings and somebody's farming. And I think that kind of wilderness was thoroughly enjoyable to see in the work.
Yeah, exactly. I hope that people make their own connections from seeing these together.
Right.
As I was saying, I mean, my interest is to take, this is environmental science, this is history, this is political science or sociology. I mean, to take it out of those boxes and understand that they all are connected to each other. Right. And I think art is one of those mediums that can really do that.
Yeah, fantastic. Before I move on to the audience question, I had just two very pragmatic questions. One is, let's say, when you said that a team was involved in putting together this mural, I was wondering how large a team was it? And connected question is, what was the method that you used in order to take notes and like compile them and say this is important? And so if you could just elaborate briefly on that.
I mean, we basically worked on this project for about close to 3 years, 2.5 years, of which a year or so was just research, as in me and my team would go, the artist team, and we also had a couple of young research students who were basically just academics with sociology, I mean, liberal arts, young people, as in MAs in history or whatever, with some experience of Punjab. And we would go together and travel around, meet people, I made it mandatory for all my artists to, we would take photographs, but sketching on live and sketching on the spot was like a very critical part of it. So everybody was drawing, and also because apart from the fact that we ourselves as artists were able to, let's say, absorb a lot more about the essence of something by drawing it. Like when you draw something, when you take a photograph, every detail in front of the photograph is recorded, and it takes an instant. So you got a man is wearing a checked shirt, then the checked shirt is visible, and somebody's got a particular colored cell phone, and that is also visible. But when you draw the same scene, you pair out the inessential stuff. You capture what is essential. The posture, the expression, the gesture. You don't spend time drawing the checks on the shirt.
Right.
So this is a kind of process of extracting the essential, which only sketching allows us to do. So that was one part of it. And the other part is that because we were also taking photographs, and whenever we needed references for details about, okay, how exactly is this machine, what are the spokes of the machine like, or whatever it might be, or we can have photographs. That is when we want to build in those details, we can refer to photographs, build them in. But that's not what we want as a way to understand the space, the place, and the people. And so also the other part of it is that when you sketch, you sort of, I'm sorry, I have to take one dog break.
Okay,
just
sure.
2 seconds. Yeah. So that so also the act of sketching, what it does is it starts a conversation with people. When you take photographs, you just take what you want and you leave. But when you sketch, you observe, you stay there, and people also observe you, and they also get interested in what you're doing. And that way, a lot of our stories, we were able to gather because people were curious about what we were doing. It started conversations. Right. So that was a research process.
Right.
And sorry, what was the other part of the question you asked?
No, I mean, I was just wondering how large was the team, because it looks like
okay,
massive
so
effort.
The team was, as I said, it went on, the whole project went on about almost 3 years. So there were many members of the team who worked for part of the time, some who worked throughout, some were replaced and others came in their place and so on. But there would have been at least all together about, including, about 20, 25 people over time. Typically, my immediate team of artists were about 6 to 7 people at any given time.
Maybe another question that I have is like, I've seen the Mapusa work closely. This is the first time I'm seeing the Punjab work. Okay. And I was wondering, like, since you have this interest in seeing the transformations taking place in cities, and according to you, like, do you have any like broad notes on what are the kinds of changes and transformations that one is seeing in terms of cities today? Like, if you have any thoughts on those, or like if you
I mean, I think that's a bit difficult to answer because for one, different cities have different things happening, and I mean, to generalize, I mean, there are certain, if you start generalizing, then we all know those obvious ones. What is actually killing and destroying our cities most of the time.
Right.
So I don't feel like discussing
makes sense.
That is well.
Yeah.
But in terms of something maybe a layer deeper is, I mean, I believe that there is that a deeper layer of understanding does exist. I have some glimpses of it, but I don't think I have I haven't articulated my thoughts on that.
Sure. No worries. So there are a couple of audience questions that I'll just read out loud for the audience who are not able to read this.
Okay.
So Rishabh Chajjar is asking, is this a digital drawing or a collage of many drawings stitched digitally?
It is a collage of many drawings stitched digitally with elements that are, it is a collage finally. I mean, some parts are hand drawn, some parts are drawn on a Wacom, on
Right.
softwares. They are brought together digitally in different forms.
Right.
But also, this is actually what I'm showing you here is a detailed digital collage of which went to a group of cinema hoarding painters who copied this onto the actual world of the museum. So,
right.
So this exists in two forms. One is the actual physical mural that exists, which is hand painted entirely.
Correct.
And there is this, which is a kind of a hybrid digital
Right.
version, which is actually a digital version, which is what I showed.
Right. Rishabh had a following question. The first part you've already answered. The second part is that do you plan to expand this study on Punjab further, or was it like limited to this particular?
No, I've done more work on Punjab after this as well.
Okay.
And I continue to, sort of have a deep interest in the history, culture, politics of Punjab.
Right.
And I keep getting, not in such a large scale, but I do end up doing something or the other in smaller ways.
Right.
To address Punjab.
Thanks. So Fawaz Khan is asking if it is possible to share some of the initial sketches and would love to see how it all begins and then transforms into a mural like this. So if there's a way to see, probably what he's asking is if there's a way to see the initial sketches somewhere.
No, they don't exist in any collated form, but perhaps I should at some point.
Yeah, I think so. It would be a lovely insight.
All over. And because, as I said, there are many other artists also involved in the
construction
of it. It exists in different bits, forms. I mean, in different hard drives of different people and different sketchbooks, and there's a lot of that actually which went into the making of this.
Right. So Prasad has a question. I'll just request Dipti to make him a panelist, and so that he can ask his question.
Okay.
Dipti, can you make Prasad the panelist?
Yeah.
Hi. Thanks. Hi, Orijit.
Hi, Prasad.
Hi. Thanks for this mesmerizing. Really, I mean, I was also remembering Goswami while you were mentioning him and his sessions and lectures, and really mesmerizing. And what a wonderful. I mean, we are all familiar with your work. I had a kind of a I had a question in the sense that your engagement with the fiction or the imaginative, like the miniature paintings included. I mean, they picked up a lot of fictional dimension. They kind of worked out the in-betweens with a lot of fiction. They kind of included narratives which were not so to say actual, or I was wanting to know what is the hesitation with the imaginary, with the fiction, because of course in one level this is a documentation which goes much beyond the map and the statistics. It kind of nuances, it kind of holds the thicknesses, it kind of puts together many dimensions of social life which otherwise city knowledge bases like the map and the statistics are unable to kind of hold.
Yeah.
So definitely there is that, but I'm just thinking, what is the problem with what is the hesitation with kind of using montages and of fiction imagining of the imaginative?
I mean, I do that in other projects, but with this one, I uh, mm, mm, chose not to do that because I feel that there is fiction. Of course, there is he ganja, there is
Yeah.
different kinds of fiction, but they're not my fiction. I'm using fiction that people know and recognize and own. Uh, of course, at the end of the day, all of this, in however way I topsy-turvy, jumble way I put it all together, is indeed a giant work of fiction, but it is not. It is not, let's say, no singular element in that is work of my fiction. I would say that was my approach for this project. On other projects, I have used fiction extensively also, but here I felt that it's such a big project, and in some ways, I'm like really lucky or whatever, fortunate to as an artist to be given a project of this scale and dimension. Not many people have that kind of an opportunity, and so I felt that I want to keep this as something which is. I mean, I know that in the very way that I thought of it and the way I want to make it, my individual way of seeing would come through. But I want to keep it at that and not allow my own. I mean, I wanted it to be documentary and at the same time fantastical, of course. But the basis is documenting. It's about the land and the stories of the people, and I wanted everything to be absolutely about all the elements to be that. The way it comes together, of course, creates like I'm saying, I mean, I think the way it comes together creates a fiction of a certain kind. But that's more like a metafiction, and not the elements are not my pieces of fiction. The elements are all thoroughly researched, real things. And also here, I felt that in a museum, in a public museum, you also have a kind of a, let's say, an educational mandate. Like I'm always conscious that people in Punjab have lost a lot of things. There's one person in one part of Punjab doesn't necessarily know what happened in another part or whatever, even within one community or whatever. And so here was an opportunity for someone to piece together so many different parts of Punjab and to present it as a kind of a entity of its own, as a full entity, rather than the bits that people are used to thinking of or seeing. So I was amazed. I had a picture. I had a scene of these young girls weaving a dari in a village courtyard, and I used to stand there when the museum opened and try to gauge the reactions of people passing, and a group of people were like so fascinated by that. They said, "Oh, that's how daris are made. We've never seen that." Because first of all, the handmade daris are anyway disappearing. But they were from a part of Punjab where daris were not made. I mean, daris are made in a certain area, in a certain part of Punjab, by a certain community of people. So it's almost like showing things that if I show people things that they recognize and understand and say, yeah, this is true, this is authentic, ye to isme koi galti nahi hai, then they will believe the next thing that I show them, even though they don't know that. And so to me, it was always necessary to appeal to everyone's sense of authenticity, because I knew also somewhere that forget the fact that I'm not Punjabi, but the fact that as a team of artists and designers, our gaze would be questioned by those who we were looking at, right? They would say that this is not correct, this is not true, this is wrong. And so I wanted that sense that our gaze is respectful, and our gaze is not about ourselves. It's actually about looking at you with a certain degree of with a complete openness and a degree of respect and a degree of let's say representational fidelity, if I may use that word. you know,
It's almost like bearing witness to
yeah,
the moment.
yeah,
So simultaneity of the moment itself.
yeah.
Like I'm sure like everybody knows this for a fact, but I really enjoyed the humor, that almost like a deadpan humor that that comes in bits and pieces
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
work, which is uh, quite engaging to see. So I don't think there are any other questions, but thanks Prasad for that question, and thank you Orijit uh, uh,
Thank you.
for really taking us through this cosmology of Punjab, if I may say so, which is very interesting. Thoroughly enjoyed the presentation, and yeah, I look forward to like all your works that we'll see probably in the near future or something.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I had a wonderful time talking about it, and it's been great. And it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thanks for everybody who attended. We'll have the next session in the following week on 1st April. That will be the last lecture by architect Ajay Sonar from Nasik. So please feel free to join next week again. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.